that noise of the Stuka, seeing the Germans' eyes and the machine gun fire coming straight at me, and being completely helpless. I mean, it was a horrible experience. The second one were the tanks. When you were in the trenches, and the noise of the movement of the tank, which you knew it would never stop, and you felt like a little bug that would be squashed.
Himmler had compared the fighting in Warsaw against the Home Army, against the Polish insurgents, to the fighting that took place in Stalingrad.
Quite possibly, the city of Warsaw has never been as happy in its 700-year-old history as it was during the beautiful spring and summer of 1939. The city was the capital of a country independent for only 21 years, after 125 years of partitions that kept Poland erased from the map of Europe. Warsaw sprung to its duties with enthusiasm and talent, which turned it into a joy to behold for its over 1 million inhabitants. Warsaw was looking optimistically to its future. Business, culture, arts, social life, and political aspirations brought the town on the Vistula River the respect and envy of other European cities. September 1st, 1939, the day World War II started, the skies above its rooftops began raining bombs on the Luftwaffe, and the German invasion took its terrifying toll on the history of mankind. Poland resisted the German aggression with bravery and sacrifice, hoping and waiting for promised French and British involvement. The real calamity the Poles suffered from World War II was geography. The country was located in the center of Europe, between Nazi Germany and Communist Russia. On September 17th, Poland was attacked from the east by the Red Army, as was agreed in the secret Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The two totalitarian powers brought upon Poland destruction, cruelty, and barbarism on a scale never before experienced. On the 5th of October, Hitler attended the victory parade and gravely wounded Warsaw. At the beginning of the occupation, the Germans felt confident on the city streets. However, Warsaw soon would become for them one of the most dangerous cities in occupied Europe.
Hitler was clearly obsessed with Poland, and he was particularly conscious of the historic significance of Warsaw as the birthplace, as the central focus of Polish national identity.
According to the plans of German strategists, Warsaw was to be destroyed and rebuilt as a small German city of 130,000 inhabitants.
Warsaw was divided by the Germans into three parts. The best part, residential section of Warsaw, was devoted to the Germans. The Poles and the Jews were chased away from this part. The second part was occupied by the Poles, and the third part by the Jews, the so-called ghetto.
The city was progressively remade according to the Nazi model. The names of streets were changed, flags with swastikas and German emblems appeared.
My blood boiled in my veins as I walked the streets of Warsaw, and any German, uniformed German who was coming on the sidewalk, I had to step into the gutter. I started believing that I was an Untermensch, I was something less than a human being.
From the first days of the occupation, Hitler's police force and the Gestapo were operative. Succa Avenue was rebaptized Police Street, and it was here that prisoners were beaten and tortured.
At the age of 12, since the schools were closed, I joined the underground army. At the age of 14, I was caught by the Gestapo and imprisoned in the infamous Pawiak prison and tortured on Sucha Lane.
November 3rd was a day of reckoning for the student Elżbieta Sochorska. She was executed for tearing down a Nazi propaganda poster that read, "England, it's your doing." Before her execution, the heroic girl made her thoughts clear to Hitler's followers by yelling in German the beginning stanza of the Polish national anthem. Poland has not perished yet.
I was being taken to Sucha Lane in one of these black cars, trucks, enclosed trucks with 3 girls, and they were asking me to, if I survived, to go and say a prayer for them, but they were going to the execution.
Everybody only wanted to join to fight, to finish, to help, to be free.
The Pawiak prison in Warsaw became the place of torment for those arrested, whose only crime was their Polish heritage. Tens of thousands of prisoners passed through Pawiak. The majority were murdered.
And there was random deaths on the so-called Aryan side, on the Christian side. That is, constant Nazi roundups of hostages, putting them against the wall and shooting them. At first the Nazis were doing it outside of Warsaw, mostly to Christians.
The drama of Jewish destruction began before the creation of the ghetto. Every citizen of Jewish ancestry was subjected to the torments of the occupier. The old and sick were especially tortured.
The ghetto, where the level of sanitation was extremely low, not only was falling apart, but people are dying in the droves.
5 years had passed of nightmarish German occupation. Raids, executions, and concentration camps cost the lives of 6 million Polish citizens, including 3 million Jews. Polish Jews were forced to live in the ghettos, from which they were being sent to the extermination camps. All this was happening in full view of the world, inactive in the face of this crime. On April 19th, 1943, an unequal heroic struggle flared up in the Warsaw Ghetto. Those resistors caught armed were shot immediately in the ghetto's ruins. The others were removed from homes and cellars to be tortured and degraded by SS men and then shot or sent to death camps.
The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising of April 1943 resulted in a complete destruction of the Jewish quarter of Warsaw. Symbolically, the Nazis blew up the Great Synagogue when they were ready to proclaim the end of hostilities in the ghetto.
On the second scene were the Poles. They were first to be slaves of the Germans, and then they were to be annihilated also.
We knew that something could be necessary in the future. Instead to go to school, we met in some places and they teach us how to work with wounded soldiers.
In June of 1944, Warsaw found itself at the rear of the fighting front, but in the course of a few weeks, the city was threatened with occupation by the Red Army.
The original plan of the Home Army leaders was to launch the rising at the moment when the Red Army, approaching from the east, came into combat with the German defenders of Warsaw.
In this situation, the Wehrmacht's leadership decided to make Warsaw into a fortified city. Her defense was entrusted to the Ninth Army.
For many years during the German occupation of Poland,